So you wonder, who is this guy to have an opinion on the Crowdstrike outage? And that's a fair question. I'm not an expert, but I am a CTFL certified tester with about 2 years experience at one of the largest testing firms in the world, where I did regulated gaming testing. That's all I will say for now, because I don't want to dox myself too much. Also, you might wonder why I'm not showing my face in this video when I have in others. It's because for this video, I need to take a lot of responsibility for what I say, and thus I need to be very measured in my wording. So you're getting B-roll of my really bad War Thunder game earlier. Now, I'm going to quote TechCrunch on the nature of this outage. Quoting TechCrunch, "A post on Crowdstrike support forums, which are only accessible with a login, also acknowledged the issue early on Friday, saying the company had received reports of crashes related to a content update. Crowdstrike said that the crash reports were related to the Falcon sensor, its cloud-based security service that it describes as real-time threat detection, simplified management, and proactive threat hunting." Full article will be linked below in the description. And to quote the BBC on but some of the disruptions this outage caused, "A massive tech failure has caused travel chaos around the globe, with banking and healthcare services also badly hit. Flights have been grounded because of the IT outage, a flaw which left many computers displaying blue error screens. There were long queues and delays and flight cancellations at airports around the world, as passengers had to be manually checked in. Cybersecurity firm Crowdstrike has admitted that the problem was caused by an update to its antivirus software, which is designed to protect Microsoft Windows devices from malicious attacks." Again, full article below. So, I'm going to lay out the responsibility, in my opinion so far, in this order. First is Crowdstrike. No matter what piece of software you make, you have an obligation to ensure that it is adequately tested before you push it out to customers. Number 2 is Microsoft. They did not create the update or the software, but they did put this into Windows Update as far as I know. This is an active situation, and thus they bear responsibility to make sure that what they put in Windows Update is adequately tested. Third, and this is more distant and more general, and that is people computerizing things that have zero business being computerized. I'm often reminded of this scene in the reimagined Battlestar Galactica, in the pilot where the journalist asks Captain Adama why all the phones on Battlestar Galactica are wired. Now, to be clear, I am not some kind of insider to Crowdstrike, nor do I have any affiliation with them. I am simply commenting on general trends in the IT industry. I do not have any knowledge of Crowdstrike that is not public knowledge. Now, with that disclaimer said, what is causing outages like this? Again, I'm not privy to the details of the inner workings of Crowdstrike, but Crowdstrike is not the only one to have failures like this in recent times. Look at Boeing. First, what I think is I have to call out the elephant in the room here: offshoring and H-1B visas. Offshoring coding work to foreign companies, or even moving the offices of a Western company, can save a ton of money, as can the lower wages and myriad of incentives involved in hiring H-1B visa holders. The problem is that in these developing countries, they don't have the same academic standards, and even when they do have the same academic standards, cheating is rampant. So even when their degrees are not outright fake, they have cheated so much to get the diploma that it may as well be fake. I have dealt with this firsthand, and even many schools in the West are having the same issues. Look at Conestoga College in Canada as an example. So what you have is experienced and well-educated developers losing their jobs, and the jobs going to people who have essentially fake diplomas and no idea what is actually going on. And that's not even accounting for the rampant ethnic nepotism that goes on, where even if you have one that is good, which I've worked with some that are great, the others they bring in might be good, or they might be there just because of ethnic or family ties. I've seen this too, firsthand. Second is there's a long-running trend of companies having this just get it out the door mentality. This leads to two things. Even when you have the most capable team in the world, the burnout, exhaustion, and pressure will 100% lead to more mistakes. The other issue is, with this get it out the door mentality, is that generally the first thing to get cut is testing. So this leads to code that is far buggier than it might otherwise be, and is being subjected to limited, or in some cases almost no testing before it is pushed on the public. This is bad enough when it's a menial piece of software, but it's not 1990 anymore. And even then, the get it out mentality killed plenty of companies back in the 90s too. Now, it is much worse, as much of our critical infrastructure relies on this sort of software. For example, today, because of the Crowdstrike outage, we had 911 outages because of a bug that caused a blue screen of death. In fact, I want to underscore the impact by reading a statement released by the Alaska State Police on Facebook. Due to a nationwide technology-related outage, many 911 and non-emergency call centers are not working correctly across the state of Alaska. If you have an emergency and 911 is not working in your area, you can call one of the following phone numbers directly. And he goes on to list local phone numbers. We appreciate your patience and will update you when we know more. This means that in the future, we may very well find out that people have died as a direct impact of this outage. So, how can we prevent these sorts of incidents in the future? Well, hiring, training, and retaining skilled people and capable personnel in a reasonable and well-managed environment is always the part that no one wants to hear, but it's the truth. In addition to that, you also need adequate testing regimes. What is an adequate testing regime? Well, this is a bare minimum and is simple on paper. It's a testing regime that follows all the requirements laid out in the requirements documentation used to build a piece of software, and done and is repeated until no high severity and high priority bugs are found in your software. Exactly how this is implemented can vary depending on the project, and even what is and is not a high severity, high priority bug can vary a little bit. That said, something making the operating system crash in a normal use case, like CrowdStrike's incident, will always be considered a high severity, high priority bug. Now, since this is a Linux channel, I will of course pose the question, could this happen on Linux? And the honest answer is yes. And while there has been similar but much smaller scale incidents on Linux with CrowdStrike in the past, I'm going to say, based on public information right now in this ongoing outage, that it is less likely. As far as I know right now, this was caused by a kernel level update. On Linux, drivers are not typically updated independently, but rather the kernel as a whole is. So a typical driver update will go into the kernel upstream, which then goes through its beta and release candidates before being released as the mainline kernel, which is then taken into a distro's development upstream. Alternatively, and is often the case with proprietary drivers like Crowdstrike's, it can go into the distro upstream directly as a part of that distro's kernel or as an independent package. So, to use Debian as an example, a package will go like this. All packages are first uploaded to Debian Unstable, where they are required to stay for 2 to 10 days and have no release critical, i.e. high priority, high severity bugs. If they have no critical bugs, after 10 days, they move from unstable to testing, where they will stay until a package frees a few months before the new Debian stable is released, which is about once every 2 years. Software in testing with no critical bugs is backported to the current stable on an as-needed basis. So, theoretically, a bug like this CrowdStrike bug could slip through, but there are a lot of opportunities for it to be caught. I use Debian as an example because I'm familiar with it and because it's a very popular server distro. It's also the basis for many other Linux distros. So in conclusion, I think that as we get poorer and as things get tighter, we're going to actually continue to see more and more incidents like this. And Linux, although it's better, it's not some magic solution. It's the fact that it's open source that is important. So you could get in shitified Linux that would do the exact same thing. The code itself is not magic. That said, adopting an open source model would alleviate, or mitigate, I should say, many of these problems. So don't forget to like and subscribe and pray every day.